Hey everybody, today is the day. I hit my 1,000-mile mark on my new Yokohama Geolandar A G015s. And it's time to give you my full and ongoing review. No, I didn't run over the goose. Today you're going to get the full rundown of what I think of these things. But before I get into it, let me preface this, and I don't really think I need to tell you guys this, but I'll say it anyway. Unless you have the exact same vehicle, with the exact same mileage, Bilstein 4600 series shocks, my driving style, the handling characteristics and condition of your vehicle may be different. It all comes into play. So just keep that in mind going forward. As an example, I had a viewer comment a couple of days ago wondering how these tires would be on a Toyota Corolla. Needless to say, if he puts these on his Corolla, he's going to have a different experience than I described. But I did read a review on TireRack.com from a guy who put them on a Prius and he loves them. So, okay, well, moving on. Some important specs. I think it's fair to assume that if you're watching this, you already read the manufacturer's specs on these tires. So I'm not going to bore you with the entire list. Pretty much just going to stick to the stuff you really want to know. My tire size is LT265/75/16. According to the manufacturer, they are a 50,000 mile tire. They started out at 1830 seconds of tread depth. When I first got them, I measured them at 1730 seconds. Yes, I went out and bought a tread depth gauge just for you guys. $3 at Autozone. Alright, I'm 500 miles in with the Yokohama Geolandar AT, and we are at right about 1730 seconds. 1730 seconds. I might have started out. I may have been mistaken when I said it was 1830 seconds before. I'll have to actually go look. If you look really close, you can still see there's still some of the little tips, whatever they call them, the remnants of the injection molding process. They're actually still on the tire, even in the center section of the tire that gets the most wear. So far so good. Tread depth is still about 17, maybe a little less. I think this depth gauge is wrong. I mean, it's a cheap one, so who knows if it's accurate or not. Maybe my depth gauge is off, but it reads 1730 seconds from shoulder to shoulder. For you spec nerds that just gotta have the specs, I'll put a link in the description to Yokohama's site. You can read all about it. Now, these are an AT or all-terrain tire. Commonly throughout the tire industry, ATs are known for being the jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. But in my opinion, I think these G015s are, let's say, master of most. But you have to know your limits. Don't expect to bury yourself up to the windows in mud and just crawl right out without help. Not gonna happen. Right up front, if you're looking for a tire to go mudding with, these aren't for you. What you need is a more aggressive, dedicated mud tire. I would say these are more geared towards average Joe 4x4 like myself, who just wants to make it from A to B no matter what Mother Nature throws at you. That's why I got them. Occasional downpours, flooding. Shit! And my number one reason, harsh winters. Where I live, we'll get a blizzard that drops 2 feet of snow overnight, and then the snowplow doesn't show up for an entire week. So if you're in a situation like mine, these tires are for you. So why did I choose these tires? Well, mediocre experiences with other tires, really. I've owned mainly BF Goodrich, also Goodyear, Hoosier, Kelly, and one thing they all had in common was that they were all expensive and they all wore out way too damn fast. And I was a huge fanboy of BF Goodrich too, and it took me a long time to let go. I got sick of having to buy new tires all the time, every 2 years like clockwork. Your mileage may vary, but that's been my experience. I wanted more bang for my buck, bottom line. The stock Goodyear Wranglers that came factory on my Hummer absolutely sucked. I thought they were going to get me killed the first time in snow, so I got rid of those right away and went with the Yokohamas based on a friend's recommendation, and they performed exceptionally in every way that mattered to me. I decided to stick with Yokohama. I will put a link in the description to my previous video if you haven't seen it, giving my first impressions of these new tires, but also the previous set of Yokohamas I give my thoughts on too, so it might interest you there. I know per the manufacturer, these are supposed to be an improvement over the G012s. And I'm no tire expert by any means, so I guess build quality is pretty good. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. Pretty good. Normally with a product, something that I could hold in my hands and play with and actually feel the construction materials and weight, I call it fondling the goods, for lack of a better term. That speaks a great deal to me about build quality, and it's a good judge on how long a product will last, at least for me. Alright, now let me try and describe this as best I can. Going by feel, they feel nice and pliable, grippy but not gummy or sticky. Compared to the Goodyear DuraTrack, these are more firm to the touch and less sticky feeling. That's what she said. The tread pattern and depth on these is what I would call moderately aggressive. Yokohama stuck with their zigzag siping pattern, which is deep. It seems to work well. The pattern has a lot of biting edges, sipes, and depth to channel water away, which is very good. It also helps to dig into snow, dirt, reasonable amount of mud, what have you. To know better for yourself what I'm talking about here, I would suggest going to a tire shop and asking them to fondle the goods. They'd probably be happy to, or they'll kick you out. So far, performance for me has been great. Wet weather traction is excellent. I spent a day out in the rain hitting the puddles as much as I could, and again, never felt out of control. Not once did I feel any hydroplaning or slipping or anything like that. That's why I wanted good siping. Again, the tread design lends itself well to giving water somewhere to go.
I just took that ramp at 55 and it gripped like a frickin' race car.
Dry traction is absolutely outstanding. Off camera, I've tried some emergency maneuvers like jerking the wheel, flying around corners, quick lane changes, hard braking, and I've actually had a couple of real close calls in traffic, and I've never had the feeling of not being in control. On dry pavement, these tires have remained sure-footed and planted without fail. Loose gravel performance is good. I have noticed they pick up some very small rocks, but none large enough to really cause damage if they get flung all over the place. As far as off-road performance, like I said before, I am not a hardcore off-roader. It just doesn't do it for me, really. Plus there's really nowhere around where I live to go legally. I might decide to take a road trip to someplace in the future and take you along with me, who knows. But for right now, I'm not going to do it. And I know there are probably people out there right now who are going, well, what'd you buy a Hummer, dude? You pavement queen, blah, 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 blah. Well, there's a reason why mine is a 2007, and it still looks, runs, and drives like it's brand new. I take care of my things, and I've got absolutely nothing to prove by purposely thrashing a brand new set of tires, not to mention trashing my vehicle. You want to take yours out in the woods and wheel the crap out of it? Fine, go right ahead, I got no problem with that. When you break something, you're paying for it, not me. Ride quality is still smooth as silk, I've got no complaints. The tires have a little bounce to them, but not much. I run them at 40 psi usually, so that might be a factor. Even at 40 psi, they absorb a good deal of the bumps. It's within my vehicle spec at that psi, and I think the truck just feels better at 40 versus 32, so whatever. It's personal preference as far as I'm concerned. Road noise is negligible. It's there, but it's not obnoxious, and it's easy for me to tune out without even thinking about it. When taking corners a little too fast, however, the tires do whine considerably, and that's just the tire letting you know, hey pal, chill out, you're pushing it. So again, know your limits. The sound has actually gotten a little bit louder since I first bought these tires, but it's still tolerable. I mean, most of the time I just tune it out. You get used to it. If you have small children or something like that, it'd probably be perfect, because that constant white noise basically that these tires make will put a baby to sleep right away. Think of it like living next to railroad tracks. At first you really pay attention, but eventually you don't even notice the trains anymore. It's pretty much like that. I do want to touch on customer service for a moment. I got these from Discount Tire. Like many places, they offer a road hazard protection program that you pay a little extra for. And let me tell you, I've had to use that before on another vehicle. I had a catastrophic blowout with a piece of debris in the road, and they replaced 2 tires, no questions asked. Nothing more out of my pocket. So that thing paid for itself. If your local tire shop offers something similar, buy it. Without hesitation, don't even think about it, just buy it. It'll pay for itself if you ever run into trouble. In the 6 years that I owned the Yokohama G012s, I never so much as got a flat. What's the likelihood of failure? I'm a big fan of the saying, if you take care of fill in the blank, it'll take care of you. So take care of your investment. Keep them rotated, don't abuse them. How long they last depends entirely on you. Enough said. The only weak point that I've noticed with these tires, and the only thing that I would implore Yokohama to improve, is the side lugs. These side lugs seem slightly more thick than the previous model G012s, but nothing compared to Yokohama's direct competition, the Goodyear DuraTrack. These side lugs at their deepest point are only 3 30 seconds deep. They look nice, but they're pretty useless. They're not deep enough to grab onto really anything. They're more like a non-functional decoration. So what do other online reviewers have to say? I think it's definitely a good idea to read what others have to say before making a large purchase like this, but you do have to take their comments with a grain of salt. Some people just take to the keyboard the day they bought something and say how wonderful it is, and you never hear from them again. On the other hand, you have a lot of other people who are professional complainers, and they're never satisfied, and they bash all over something just for not being perfect. Or they're just idiots. I'm going to read you a couple reviews. Now, these are directly from the Tire Rack website. I'll put a link in the description to that if you want to read it and judge the validity of these for yourself, but a few of them caught my attention and I feel they're worth mentioning. So here's my take, and I'm going to try and keep it short but still get my point across. Number 1, tires went bald after 20,000 miles on a Ford Raptor. Very little towing and no off-road action. My dying ass. You either have a severe problem with your truck, you like to do burnouts and drive like a complete lunatic, or you're flat out full of it. If you chewed these tires bald in 20,000 miles, that's not a tire problem, bro. That's you. Next, a 2012 Jeep Wrangler Sahara off-roader trashed him in 12,000 miles. This guy complains that he got sidewall punctures and they're horrible in mud. Again, with the off-roading, you have no room to complain. A, you should have picked a more aggressive mud tire, which this is not. And B, damage is a risk you take off-roading with any tire. It's not the tire's fault, it's yours. Deal with it. Here's another good one that I think really gets the point across. This guy has a 2001 Toyota 4Runner SR5 four-wheel drive. He drove on these tires for 400 miles. Returning them, he replaced a set of Michelin LTX MS's, and they're not even close to the performance of the Michelins. He says his truck wants to tip a little bit when cornering, and the front end now washes out and the sidewall folds under. Braking heavily in a straight line, he says the tires squirm horribly to the point where he has to fight to keep it straight. Something else is going on here. Big time. Now, my driving style, although I've toned down quite a bit since my teens, still ranges from spirited to maniacal. And I have never turned a corner so hard that it folded my sidewall over. So immediately it sounds like this guy drives like a complete ass. I'm going to guess that he ran the crap out of those Michelins, which are a fairly mild all-season tire, not an all-terrain tire. They're completely different animals. Not only that, and you may disagree with me on this, but after running the same tire for years and getting a certain wear pattern to them, then switching to not only new tires, but a completely different type of tire, it may cause other issues that you became used to, like alignment, shocks, struts, what have you, to become significantly more noticeable. So I'm going to call this one a vehicle maintenance issue that reared its ugly head. Again, not the tire. On a more positive note, guy with a 2001 Ford F-250 two-wheel drive Super Duty, he got 70,000 miles out of him, loves them, says he's buying them again. Another guy got 80,000 miles on these in a Subaru Forester. The weather conditions with snow and potholes are nearly identical to mine. He says they're the best tires he's ever owned, and he's going to buy them again. So as you can tell, you really have to read a lot into these online reviews and decipher whether or not the person's a moron.
You're a real genius, you know? You're a real genius. Regular brain surgeon.
Every tire has its pros and cons, but in my opinion, the positives far outweigh the negatives. My one con with the side lugs isn't even that huge of a deal. I'd still suggest to Yokohama that they can improve upon it, but the pros check all of my boxes in the categories that really count. Capability, check. Durability, check. Ride quality, check. Bang for your buck. You get the idea. Which brings me to my final point, and it's a big one for a lot of people, and that's risk. What's the cost benefit here? Not counting gas, oil, or an engine that runs, good reliable tires are one of the most important things on your car, and it's a big purchase to think about. Is it worth forking over the dough for the good stuff? Short answer, yes. If you're one of those people that are rolling around on slicks right now in desperate need of new tires, maybe you have limited funds, and for you it's a very real risk to consider. So you choose something less expensive, right? We all know what happens. It doesn't hold up, and you end up right back where you started 2 years later, maybe even less. And in the long run, you actually end up spending more for a lesser product. For me, this tire is a low-risk, high-benefit situation. Judging by my last Yokohama experience, I have the most confidence that these tires will last more than any other tire I've owned in my entire life. I know that sounds like overly high praise, but this is my 19th set of tires over my lifetime, and I've never had another brand last more than 2 to 3 years tops. Certainly never a set that died of old age like my old Yokohama G012s. I don't feel at all like I'm paying for a name and getting a mediocre tire. It's proven bang for my buck, which I am all for. The Yokohama Geolandar AT G015 should be at the top of your list. I plan on giving an update around the 10,000 mile mark, but as it stands right now, I am confident in saying don't wait for me to get there. Go for it, make the purchase, you won't be disappointed. And if you do, let me know in the comments. It would be nice to know that I helped somebody. Well, I'm just going to keep on trucking. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you at 10,000.